Welcome back, guys. So this is lesson 3 continued. So we're still working with solving systems of equations with elimination, okay? So this first one here, we have 2x plus 3y equals 15, x minus 3y equals 3. So here's our system of equations, and we are going to eliminate a variable in order to solve it, okay? So our first step that we learned last week was to add the equations together. When we do this, we're looking for those opposites. We're looking where the coefficient is equal, but we have opposite signs. So here we have a positive 3y and a negative 3y, okay? That's what we want to look for when we're doing elimination, because we know when there's opposites, they're going to cancel out. So let's add these two equations together. And remember, again, we're looking at the x terms first, then the y terms, and then the constant. So when we add together 2x plus x, we get 3x. This is like adding 2x plus 1x. Then positive 3y plus negative 3y is the same thing as 3y minus 3y. And since those are equal and opposite, they cancel out. So they have been eliminated. I'll bring down the equal sign. 15 plus 3 is 18. So now that we've added the equations together, we have 3x equals 18. Our next step is to solve for x. So to solve for x here, x has a coefficient of 3, and to undo that, to get rid of it, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. So we get x on the left equals 18 divided by 3, which is 6. Okay, so we know what x is now, but because this is a system of equations, we have two unknowns. So now we have to find out what y is. This is where we take one of our original equations, plug x back in so we can solve for y. So I'm going to take the second equation here and just rewrite it to the side. X minus 3y equals 3. So now we can take x out and substitute in what x is equal to, which is the 6. So when I take out x out, I plug in 6 minus 3y equals 3. Now we can solve for y. So to do that, I would subtract 6 from both sides. And those cancel out. And then we bring down negative 3y equals 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Okay, so now we can get rid of the coefficient of y, which is negative 3. So we divide by negative 3 on both sides. We get y equals 1. So now we have an x, we have a y, so we write that as a coordinate to show our solution here, 6, 1. Remember, x always goes first, y is next. Now we're going to be looking at equations or systems of equations when our terms are not equal and opposite. Okay, so this first problem we did, we had these 3's here, this 3y and negative 3y. These terms were equal and opposite. So they had the same coefficient, but opposite signs. And that's what we've worked with so far. These next two problems, we're not going to have that, okay? So we're not going to have the equal and opposite signs already there for us. So we actually have to make it happen ourselves. And to do this, we're going to multiply one row to get terms that are equal and opposite. Okay? So I'm going to scroll down here. So this first problem, 8x minus 6y equals negative 8. And then we have negative 16x plus 4y equals negative 16. So I want you to pause what we're doing. Don't write down what I'm about to write down, okay? if I were to solve like we have been doing, where I add the equations together, I would do this, and 8x minus 16x would give me negative 8x. Negative 6y plus 4y is negative 2y. And then negative 8 minus 16 would give me negative 24. But notice when I add these together, we don't have any elimination happening, okay? So we have to make it to where one of our terms will eliminate, okay? So now you can start writing with me. So what I'm going to do is really pick a term that I want to eliminate. So for this first one, I'm going to go with x, okay? I want to be able to eliminate the x terms. And when you look at it, this first equation has a positive 8x. The second one has a negative 16x. So pretty much I want to get that first equation's x term to be a positive 16, okay? I want it to be equal coefficient but opposite signs. So we want to multiply this first equation by something that's going to make it a positive 16x. So we want to multiply the first equation by 2. And we don't just multiply the first term. We have to multiply the entire equation, okay? So I'm just going to rewrite it underneath. So when I multiply this whole equation, 2 times 8x is now a positive 16x. 2 times negative 6y is negative 12y. And then 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. So I've multiplied that other equation, that first equation, by 2. And now notice we have, in our second equation, we have a negative 16x, and we have a positive 16x now. So now we can go back to our original steps now where we add the equations together. So when I add these two things together, negative 16x plus 16x eliminates, just like we expected them to. And then we have 4y minus 12y, which gives me negative 8y. And then negative 16 plus negative 16 is negative 32. So we added the equations together. Now we solve for y. So to solve for y here, we would divide by negative 8 on both sides. We get y equals positive 4. So we got our first answer, y is 4. Now we want to plug 4 back into one of the equations and get x. And we could choose any of one of these equations that we have here. I'm going to choose the first one, mostly because there's some simpler numbers in there. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite 8x minus 6y equals negative 8. And I'm going to plug in 4 for y in this equation. So we have 8x minus 6 times 4, so I took out the y, plugged in 4, equals negative 8. So now we can simplify this negative 6 times 4, and that's going to give me 8x minus 24 equals negative 8. Our next step here is to move the constant. We want to move that negative 24. We do that by adding 24 to both sides. So we get 8x, negative 24 plus 24 cancels out, equals, and negative 8 plus 24 is 16. Our last step here is to divide by 8. So when we divide by 8 here, we get x is equal to 2. So now we have an x and a y, and I'll write that as a coordinate here, 2, 4. And that would be the solution to this system. Okay, we have one more here. This next problem, x plus y equals 4, 2x minus 3y equals 18. So notice again, we do not have equal and opposite terms here, all right? The x terms, we have a positive x and a positive 2x. The y terms, we have a positive y and a negative 3y. So now we're going to pick one of the terms to eliminate. And so then we can multiply one of them to become equal and opposite. And on this one, you really could pick either one. I'm going to pick the y terms only because one of them is already positive and the other one's negative, okay? So I want to eliminate the y terms. In this first equation, that means I want the y to be a positive 3y. And since it's already positive, I just have to multiply by the whole equation by 3. Okay? We could have gone a different route and eliminated the x terms, and you'd want the x to have a negative 2 as its coefficient. So you'd multiply everything by negative 2. But we're going to eliminate the y terms. So I'm going to rewrite it down here as I multiply. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times y is positive 3y. Have our equal sign. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so we multiplied the equation, and now notice our y terms have equal coefficients. They're both 3's, but they're opposite signs. So now we can add these two equations together. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative 3y plus 3y, these eliminate, they cancel out. Bring down the equal sign, and then we have 18 plus 12, and that's going to give us 30. Okay, so now we want to divide each side by 5. And this way we can solve for x. So once I divide by 5, I get x equals 30 divided by 5 is 6. Okay? And now we can solve for y. So I'm going to take that first equation here, x plus y equals 4, and I'm going to rewrite it underneath this red line because we know that we need to substitute in 6 for x so that we can find what y is equal to. All right, so I take out x, I plug in 6 plus y equals 4. So now I solve for y by subtracting 6 from both sides, and we get y equals negative 2. So now I have a 6 for x, I have negative 2 for y, and so I put those together for my solution. 6, negative 2. If you still need some more practice on this, you're welcome to rewatch this video. Also, Khan Academy has some great videos on solving systems of equations by elimination, so you're welcome to look those up as well.